Hi, I'm Aiman, and welcome back to one of my DIY home repair videos. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace a three-way light switch for your ceiling fan, or your ceiling light. Let me clarify, this tutorial is for a three-way light switch, but the procedure should be the same if you're installing it for the ceiling fan. And when you're doing any kind of electrical work, it's always a good idea to flip the breaker first, which I'll show you at the end of the video. But when you're talking about some house systems, for certain houses, the fan and the ceiling light might be on the same breaker. But in other houses, like our house, they might be on separate breakers. The ceiling fan is actually connected to my mom's room, the master bedroom breaker, but the light is on its own independent breaker. So just make sure that you flip the correct breaker, and if you're not sure which one is the correct breaker, then it's always a good tool to use a tool to find out. Let me demonstrate here. So we have the breaker for the lights turned off, so if I press this, nothing should happen. But the fan, the breaker for the fan is still on. So, you can see that it turns on. Enough talk, let's get to the actual meat of the video. Now, it's always a good idea, well, you should remove the bulbs and their housings because they're heavy, they're fragile, and you might break them, and they'll obstruct your view when you're trying to work on the electrical work. So you might be able to get away with it if you're working with 3 lights, but in our case, we definitely have to because these assemblies are very heavy and because there's 4 of them. First step before you remove the housings, of course, is to remove the light bulbs. So, thankfully they're not hot right now. Alright, so for removing the housings, I don't know specifically about your housing, but for our housing, we have 3 screws that keep in the housing at the top. And first, what we should do is we should try to loosen them up in case they're too tight to remove with hand with a screwdriver. And then what we do is while we're holding onto the housing, we're going to take them off one by one using our hands. So let me demonstrate. You just loosen each screw just a tiny bit until eventually you're able to finagle it out. And you can see that none of the screws have fallen out. The next step is to access the wiring. In our case, we only have to take off a cover with 2 screws, using a screwdriver to loosen them off, and then removing them by hand, and then removing this tiny little, I don't know what to call it, but this tiny little nub right here, which I'll demonstrate later. But there are some other cases, like I know my mom's ceiling fan, where you have to take off the entire light fixture in order to access the wiring. In our case, we're just going to take off the cover. So first, loosen it with a screwdriver. You know, I should have just said it right now instead of before. But we're just loosening them, and then we're going to remove them by hand. It's very tricky if you have if you have large hands, but I think I should be able to get this. Okay, now, alright, hopefully we sped that up. Alright, so the next step is to take off this little connection piece in case you have a handle connected. And in order to do that, it's really simple. You just take the clip and you just angle it so that the thin part of the chain goes through a little opening. It's a bit hard to show on camera, but I'll try to explain. And I was hoping for a grand finale, but you can see that there's a tiny little opening that the small parts of the chain are supposed to fit through. Anyway, the reason that we're doing this is in order to take off this, let me just put that back there, let's forget that happened, to take off this little knob right here. So if we still had the handle attached, then it wouldn't be able to, let me just show you, it wouldn't be able to fall right through. So now that I have this taken off, we're going to take out the cover. Now the grand reveal. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. So let's compare the switches. So if what I just did there is a bit confusing, let me explain in another way. What we just took off was a knob that fixed this little switch to this cover. So with the new switch that we have, let me explain. So this also comes with a knob. So when I unscrew that, you can see that the way it goes in is through the top with the chain, and the knob goes on to fix it there. So that's what it should look like when it's complete. Now, talking about this switch while we're here and while we're at it, this three-way switch is around $6 at Home Depot, and it's a three-way switch. You can tell because there's one black wire coming out from it and two live wires from it, as opposed to a one-way switch which only has two wires coming from it. From down here, you should be able to see all the wiring that we have here. You might be able to see some of the connectors. Now, before we go touching any of the electrical stuff, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's no current running through. And in order to do that, we have this handy dandy, amazing tool. I forgot what it's called actually. My dad never told me. Let's see. It's a dual range voltage tester. So as its name implies, it tests for voltage or for power. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it up to anywhere where there would be an electrical current, and if it beeps, that means there's electrical current. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to happen. Wait, let me show you what it's supposed to look like when it goes near any electricity. So when you take it like 2 feet, maybe, even 2 feet within any electrical devices, it's gonna start beeping. Let me show you what happens when you get really close. So it beeps really rapidly. I'm not sure I need to say it really rapidly. Wait, hold on. Ah, there we go. You hear it beeping rapidly, which means that it detects a lot of current. Alright, so let's make sure that this is safe. And as you can see, there's no current that we need to worry about. So, taking a look at the wiring, you can see that there's some specific things like these little yellow or orange, put that down. These little yellow or orange cap-like things. And what these are called twist-on wire connectors. Now, when you're working with these kinds of things, or electrical work, it's always a good thing to have these extras on handy. So, what these do is they take two wires, you twist them around, you put the cap on, and it keeps it closed. Alright, so now we're going to replace the light switch. Now, if you're going to replace 3-to-1 or 1-to-3 light switch, then I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube for that, but right now we're replacing a 3-way light switch. And the difference between a 1-way and a 3-way is that, as you can see, there's already a major difference is that there's 3 wires on this. There's one live one, and then there's a 1 and a 2 wire. On the 1-way, there's 1 live and then just 1 wire. On a 1-way, when you flip the switch, well, it's broken on this one, but when you flip it, it only opens and closes the circuit. On a 3-way, however, and when we were trying to do this on my mom's fan, we didn't know how it worked, but after we realized that it's an ingenious design. When you flip it once, the live wire sends current to the red wire. When you flip it second time, it sends it only to the blue wire, but when you flip it a third time, 3-way, it sends it to both wires. So, like, to put it in perspective, if the red wire was these 2 lights and the blue wire was these 2 lights, one flip would be these 2 lights turning on, the second flip would only be these 2 lights, and the third light switch would be all 4 of them turning on. In the case of my mom's room, we had 3 ceiling lights, and for the first flip, only this light turned on. For the second flip, the other 2 lights turned on, and for the third flip, or switch, all 3 of them turned on. If you don't have a lot of experience in this field, like me, it's always best to do it one at a time, which is like, take off the cap, and then screw it on with the new switch. And I definitely suggest this if you're replacing it with the same switch, because like as this video's title suggests, we're replacing the switch, we're not installing it with something else. So like I said before, we're going to unscrew the connector. And actually, when you look at the 2 switches, the wires come out the same way and they're the same color. So they're exactly the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to unscrew one of these connectors, and I'm not sure which way it's unscrewing, but I'm gonna guess it's counterclockwise. And then what we're going to do is, I think that's the black wire. So we're going to unintertwine these two. Okay. And then we're going to take the black wire, or whatever wire you're doing. We're going to take the cap off of it. That's just trash. And then we're going to twist it around. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, I'm not sure this is the right word, crimping, but we're just going to twist the wires together. After that, what you're going to do is you're going to take your twist on wire connector, and you're going to twist it the same way that you twisted the wires so that it locks on, like a screw thread. And as you can see, it stays in place. Now, after this, you could always put on electrical tape, you know, just in case you're unsure of your work. But in our case, maybe, but I think we're good. So now we're going to do it on the other two wires. Let's do my blue one. So the blue one's connected to this yellow one. In some cases, you might not have an extra twist-on connector, and that's why you might be able to use something like these, but it's a bit hard to use them. I know my dad was trying to use them until we found some extra connectors, so it's always a good idea to have some extras of these on hand. Anyway, back to this. That's the blue one, right? I can barely tell because the light makes it seem like all of them are the same. Oh, okay, so I see two of them. Okay, so in this case, there's two wires from the top coming to this one. And that means those two wires are connected to two of these four lights. Now with these blue and red wires, it's going to be a different case. We're going to be dealing with 3 wires instead. 2 of the wires from the top are actually leading to 2 of the 4 lights that we're dealing with. So I think the blue is these 2 and the red is these 2. So when we're dealing with 3 wires, what we want to make sure is that all 3 wires are twisted together and that one of them isn't not connected to the other 2. So in order to make that easier on us, we can twist 2 of the wires together. And then we can make the 3rd wire longer. And in order to do that, we're going to take this really handy dandy tool, the wire stripper or wire cutter, put it in between, and what you'll see is that when you squeeze, you get to take off a bit of the that was not a good demonstration. Alright, there we go. Okay. That was unexpected. But as you can see, the metal part sticking out of the wire is longer. So now what you can do is I don't have any example wires, but you can wrap it around. Let's say for this, we can now wrap it around much more. So if it was 2 wires bundled together, this would be thicker. So this would actually make it easier for all 3 wires to be connected. Anyway, after you put all 3 on, it's always a good idea, especially in our case, because I think this was the source of it short-circuiting. But it's a good idea to secure them with electrical tape. I'm going to take my wire connector and just twist that on. There we go, nice and tidy. Now we're going to deal with the final red one. I mentioned a bit earlier, I'm not sure if you heard it, but I mentioned earlier that the blue wire might have been the cause of a short circuit, and let me explain what I mean by that. Our light fixture, I'm not sure in your case if it would be the same, but I think our light fixture is unique in that if you twist one of the housings, it's on a ball joint that if you twist it, you can see that it actually twists the wires underneath. And I'm going to try to do my best to get a good example. And you can see that right now it's even influencing the wires. So what my mom was doing, and maybe I shouldn't say this if she watches this video, but what my mom did is she was trying to adjust the housings by twisting them, and we think that's probably what caused some of the wires to get tangled and some of them to separate. And for them to separate, that must have caused a short circuit. So just if you have a light fixture like this that has ball joints like this, just be wary of that. Alright, now let's do the red wire. So first I'm going to disconnect the old light switch. There we go. That's what it looks like in all of its glory. It looks like that one. It's just this one's not orange. Anyway, what we're going to do is, let's see. First we're going to twist these two together. And then, like I said earlier, this red wire might not be long enough to fully wrap around. So what we're going to do is, like I said earlier, is we're going to strip it. Okay, let's try to get a good shot of this. It doesn't have to be too much. Oh. I think that was too much. So I stripped it a bit too long, but that's okay. After you wrap it around here, let me just try to demonstrate it. After you get to the end, what you can do is you can cut it off with a scissor, but I think we're good. Maybe we're going, actually, yeah, definitely what we're going to do is we're going to wrap some electrical tape around it, because to prevent any past mistakes from popping up again. We're actually wrapping them around the rubber part in order to prevent, let's say we're going to call it a bundle. We're going to bundle it up so that if anyone tries to twist this, these three wires are going to stay together. We're not going to wrap it around the metal part, or the strands, because I really don't think that would do anything. Now that we have the electrical tape on, and my dad noticed that I didn't have enough on, so he helped me after. Now that we have the electrical tape on, we're going to put the connector back on. What we're going to do is, as with all the other previous ones, we're going to twist it as hard as we can until it can't tighten anymore. And then what we're going to do is we're going to yank it. But not yet. We're going to hold on to the bundle first, so that when we yank it, we don't bring the entire thing down with us. So I've tightened it all the way I can. You can see that even the bundle is trying to tighten. So as you can see, when I yank it, it's not coming off. Let me just make sure on the other ones. There we go. Okay, so all three are good to go. Alright, so now that we have all the wiring connected, we're going to attach the light switch to the cover right here. Now, they provided a where is it? They provided a, I guess you could, if you could call this a bolt, this would be a nut. But they provided a knob for us. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to go with the old knob. I think on my mom's fan, we actually replaced the old knob, and I think it looked like this actually. But right now, we're just going to replace it. So you just stick the chain through the cover. I think I digressed a bit too much there, and you might have to finagle the wires a bit out of the way. Now I'm going to screw it back on. Whew, that is satisfying. Oh, okay. There we go. So, now that we have the knob back on, what we're going to do is just stuff all the wiring back into the housing. Now, it's going to be a bit tricky, and we're going to do it in a way that when we try to, if in the future we try to twist these housings, it might not unravel again. But I think that doesn't matter. I think it more depends on the position of the housing. That's a bit of rambling too. But as you can see, all I'm doing is just stuffing it all back in. Make sure that the screw holes line up. Oh, there we go. There's another connector sticking out. Make sure that all the wiring's inside. Oh, wow. It all fit in. Now we're going to take the... Oh, I should have taken the screws with me. Hold on. These are very tiny. Don't lose them. Okay. Going to stuff that all back in there. Just put them on first, but don't tighten them just yet so that we can put the other one on. Okay. Don't drop it. The light is blinding me. There we go. I'm not sure if you guys could see that light, but it might have been in the glare of my eyes, but that has been a pain. Alright, so after we have both of them in, we're going to tighten off a screwdriver, of course. Now that we have the cover back on, it's important to, of course, test our work before we do anything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the chain back on, and then we're going to put the light bulbs in and test them. We're not going to put the housings in first because if it doesn't work, we have to take everything off again. So I think we're just going to speed this up. Alright guys, moment of truth. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited. Alright, let's do this. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, wait, no. I just realized. The switch. There's also a light switch. This blue tape is here to prevent anyone from accidentally turning it on. Alright, let's try seeing if that does it. Wow. I've never seen the dining room bulbs this bright. Oh, that's beautiful. Alright, let's do the third flip. Let's see if all of them turn on. That's a day's work. I'm done. Alright. Wow. Okay, so if I didn't explain it, we already turned the breaker on, and right now you can see that the three-way switch works as we intended. You turn on one switch, these two lights turn on, you turn on the second time, these two lights turn on, the third time, both currents open up. So, that's amazing. Oh, I already saw it in my mom's room, but to see it in the dining room with a 4-light setup, it's pretty amazing. All things considered, that was a pretty climactic finale. It's actually like 4 minutes after 12 right now, so seeing this has been a pretty big joy to me. After this, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the light switch off, we're going to turn this switch off, we're going to turn the breaker off, take off the bulbs, clean the housings, put the housings on, then put the bulbs on, and we'll be right back. I said earlier in the video that I was going to talk about the breaker. Now, it might not be the same case for you guys, but our previous owner labeled all the breakers, and we're very lucky to have that. And you can see that for the dining room fan used the number 15 breaker. So if we turn that off, then the fan would not turn on. But the dining room ceiling lights uses a different breaker. It uses 23B. That's labeled as master bedroom and bathroom. And you might notice that doesn't say dining room lights. Now, when we first saw the problem that the dining room lights wouldn't turn on, we were not sure which breaker that corresponded to until we did a few trial and errors. And eventually, we found out that breaker 23B is what turns on the dining room ceiling lights. Now, like I said before, you always want to make sure that you turn off the correct breaker when you're working with the electrical work. And like I said before, you can use the tool. I think it was the Klein's tools. Very handy. I think it's 25 bucks. Very cheap investment, but it's one that will help you in the future. But now that we have the breaker turned on, let's go back. Alright, so before we end this video off, I just want to make a few comments. First off, if you're going to put on the light housings, there might be some special tricks to that. In our case, when you put it back on, you want to make sure that you put it in completely. You want to make sure that on all 3 sides that it's completely in, or the lips won't be properly. Let me explain. When you put the light housing in, there's a lip that is kept in place by 3 screws around it. So you want to make sure that all of it is inside, so that when you screw the screws in, it's actually going to go under the lip and not touch the lip. So when you screw the screws, you want to do it one at a time, slightly. Just keep doing that until eventually you get to a point where none of them is going to be any more tightened. At that point, you should be good. Let me just make sure these work one more time. Oh my god. Alright. There we go. Sorry if I blinded you guys there. Also, another comment is that about this, I called it a Klein tool, but earlier in the video I called it the correct name, the dual range voltage tester. And this is a very handy tool because unlike the multimeter that my brother Azami likes so much, the multimeter has to make a point of contact with a wire or metal of some sort in order to detect current. With the Klein tool, what it does is magic. Like, I'm not sure how it does this, but if it's just in the air, it somehow detects electrical current. How does it do that? I'm not sure. My dad said to mention that it had an insulated tip. I don't know what that means. I guess it means that the tip is insulated. But the fact that it can just detect electrical current through the air is pretty mind-boggling to me, and makes me think less of the multimeter. But maybe Azami, if he was here, he would fight back about it. But you know, I'm always a fan of the specialized tools. Like, I know, like, in my car repair videos, go check those out, by the way. I have, like, the Power Plus 3, and that's a very special tool for this kind of job as well. But I really like specialized tools. So my dad told me what that insulated tip means. So it means that you can actually just stick this in an electrical socket. Oh. And it's not going to do anything to you. But if you tried to stick a multimeter in an electrical socket, which I would not recommend, that would be a bit dangerous. As for the dual range voltage tester, my dad says it's something called non-contact or inductive charge, which means that it can detect current without it being actually in contact. And he sort of compared it to, I didn't know about this, but apparently iPhone 10s have this sort of metal plate that you can put them on and they'll charge. And they don't have to make any contact with the actual charging port. They somehow send the power through. And I don't even know anything about that, so I'm the worst person to ask for an explanation of that, but that's my understanding of it. And I think that's pretty cool. Alright, so another thing before this video finally closes, I just want to say that in this video, I was rambling a lot, and I might have been out of touch a bit. And I just want to say that if you're not a long-time viewer, you might not know this, but when I record videos late at night, right now it's actually 12:30, it's a bit tough for me to come up with words to say and to organize my thoughts. So you might have heard me rambling a lot in this video. If you noticed, I apologize, but anyway, I'm Aiman, and thanks for watching. Please like, rate, comment, subscribe, and look at other videos on EyeOnAiman, especially the DIY home repair. And maybe you'll catch me mumbling in those videos too, if it's late at night. So, wanna say hi? That's Bella. She's wearing a tie. It's pretty cool. I think the tie's okay though. She has a collar under it, and she doesn't really seem like she's uncomfortable wearing it. Anyway, I'm Aiman. Where's Bella? That's Bella, and I guess that's it. Signing out. Peace.